We're very pleased to have Rita Arendz with us. She's based in Canada and has been undergoing quite a formidable recruitment process she's going through at the moment. So we're going to ask her to just tell us about her experiences. Thanks, Rita.
Thank you, Rosie, and thanks, Alex, for the wonderful information before that. Just a bit of a background on the ensemble, and that's one of the things that, in my own experience, I try to find out as much as I can about the ensemble before I even sort of decide to do the audition or not. In this particular case, the one that I started in January 2020, but got held up through COVID and just got restarted again last spring. The ensemble has 3 major concerts as a full band. The rest of the work they do is as subgroups of smaller ensembles through their outreach and their educational program. That's important to know how, because that affected how the audition process was going through. Next slide, please, Rosie, or whoever's doing the slides. Thank you. So as I mentioned, the posting was done in January of 2020, and it was done through social media. It was done through an organization that we have here in Ontario called Canadian Band Association of Ontario. It's basically a community bands network. It was posted in there, and I'm sure there was postings in local newspapers for in their area. So one of the things they gave us was the job description, which was it was written in quite a daunting way, which was interesting enough, knowing having found out what the background of the ensemble was. So that made it kind of interesting process. So they were trying to take a very professional approach to how they were doing this audition. So we were asked to submit a cover letter of interest. We had to reduce our CV down to 1 page, which is fine, but it's kind of hard to pick out what you want to put on the CV, especially after COVID, because there's nothing new through COVID to update your CV with. We had to provide examples of previous programs before, and we also had to provide a video of ourselves conducting, which also was that. And it just said the slides was postponed till spring of 2022. So thank you, Rosie. Next slide. When they came back, they did come back to the applicants who had applied the 2 years previous and asked if there was still an interest, which I thought was good of them to not just assume that because 2 years had passed and COVID had passed that if we were interested or not, which I thought was a good thing for them to do. I was told, so almost a year ago now, that I had been one of 3 selected, the 3 being that they were assigning each one of the people to one of the 3 major concert series. We were given the dates. We were asked what our priority was, which date we preferred, 1, 2, and 3. Along with that was the rehearsal schedule. They do 3 rehearsals and the concert because of the way they're set up. But we also had to come up with our theme and basically the title of our program. And that took a little bit of time because you have to try to figure out, for me, my own experience was trying to deal with I'm giving a list of priorities of what my dates are. So I didn't want to be season specific because I wouldn't know if I was going to be in March or October or the spring. So I was trying to find a theme that would work in any season based on their dates. And so that was submitted appropriately. I hope they liked it. Continued on. Am I missing anything? And other than, yeah, they had timelines. So I felt from my own perspective, it was really important to be ahead of the deadlines, not just wait till the deadlines, partly because of my own workload, but partly because having been on the other side for other job situations, when somebody waits until the last minute to submit something, it sometimes can get a little off-putting, I found for my own self. So that's so far where we were. I'm moving on. Thank you, Rosie. Next slide. Okay, so that was back in June. July, a month later, I was basically offered the concert date and reaffirmed of the rehearsal schedule. And basically the requirement going back was confirmation of my theme and my concert title. 2 months later, or 7 weeks later, I was asked for a 1 to 2 sentence description so that they could start putting together what we call rack cards. So it was like a quarter strip, and it had the 3 concerts listed on, and then just a little bit of a catchphrase to entice, audience people. This was what the concert series was going to be. Also dealing with what the fee was going to be for my time with the 3 rehearsals and the concert. And I was also advised that I had access to the library, like the listing of the library, and that if I needed music, I had a budget for that type of music. The interesting thing is that music was taking up to 10 to 12 weeks to get from overseas to here. So if you weren't ahead of it because of all of the mail issues, and then the UK had that cyber thing happening in January. So it got kind of interesting for us to get our music in time if we had ordered it. Then they wanted to have more updated information because the information they had from us was pre-COVID. So they wanted more updated information. And then the program order had to be submitted. And in the meantime, you're also trying to do the rehearsals. Next slide, please. I think I covered that one. Okay. And so my rehearsal schedule was the 18th of Feb, the 4th of March, and the 11th of March being the dress rehearsal, the concert the 12th. In my case, being in the middle of winter, we lost one of the rehearsals due to an outrageous snowstorm, which meant that we did reschedule it, which was kind of cool because I was really pleasantly surprised from my side to see actually a few more people at the rehearsal that was rescheduled than had been available for the rehearsal that got canceled. But it meant that we did 10, 11, 12 in a row, which in some cases, the effect of not being able to go back home and work on stuff, the musicians just found a little bit tight. So my experience from that was, I never wish to have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday run again. It was just as nerve-wracking for me as it was for the musicians, but the concert went off well. So because the membership of the band is quite scattered geographically here in Southern Ontario, the general manager actually just sent me a link to one of his Google Docs that had a list of the personnel, and if people ended up changing or for some unexpected reason had to pull out, that list was always being updated. So I had a rough idea of who was on the job. The thing is that what is interesting about this ensemble is there was maybe 10 to 12 that are core that you can pretty well count on concert for each and every concert. What I found out afterwards is the rest of the band is like whoever's available from their long list of players. So you never really know 100% who your players are other than the core. Then before the concert actually got rolling, there was another series of communications dealing with an interview, which happened the Wednesday after the concert. The interview was a panel of 4, basically the search committee, which was a subset of the board of directors. The other thing that occurred was that the musicians were actually given a form at the end of the concert to fill out and submit. Sort of tying a little bit in with what Alex said earlier, I do not know what their process is for that, if they're weighting one over the other, or if one is input to the selection committee based on the interview questions. Some of my own questions included, why did I wish to conduct the band? What my thoughts were on programming. Was I open to all types of repertoire, or was I limited to just being a purist, for lack of a better definition? Questions about how to grow their audience, like things like that. How to build the size of their core membership. So it got quite intense and quite niggly as far as the details that they were asking me on my interview post-concert. So I think, yeah. And the other thing is, because the third concert is happening at the end of this month, nobody's going to know until probably June at the earliest, and I'm guessing at that, as to what the results were. So the poor individual who had their auditions concert back in October is waiting like 10 months to find out the results of it. So it is a long process, but that's the process they chose. And I wish them all the best in their final selection. So that sort of summarizes my experiences so far. Did I? Oh, sorry, I missed that. Sorry, Rose, forgot to ask you to flip the page. So yeah, so there's just the summary. Oh yeah, the bio and the program. So there was also, I should just back up a little bit. There was also requirements for me to be involved with making sure that the artwork for the program, for the posters, making sure that the bio information was in. I actually had to correct the spelling on one of the members listed, one of the musicians listed on the program because it was misspelled by the GM. And you know, so there was total involvement from almost start to finish of what I would think would be the job of what I would have to do when I was there. So it gave me an insight as to how they operate. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rita. That sounds like quite an ordeal, and it sounds like you need to be extremely patient going through all that to see what the result's going to be. So good luck with that, and hope you'll let us know the outcome. Thanks.